We are building the spaces that we want to see, spaces that don't currently exist where we feel comfortable. And so I think there's a lot of power in representation and in reflection.
This is Changemakers. Each year, Well+Good recognizes leaders in wellness that are pushing the industry forward, whether that be in food, fitness, beauty, tech, the environment, you name it. Our hope is that in recognizing members of our growing wellness community, we can inspire others to support their work and continue to make necessary changes. I'm Kara Jillian Brown, writer at Well+Good, and today I'm speaking with Naj Austin, a community builder based in Brooklyn, New York.
My name is Naj Austin, and I am the founder and CEO of Ethel's Club and Somewhere Good, two platforms centering people of color.
What led you to found Ethel's Club?
I felt there needed to be a space that centered people of color in all of the ways that they exist, whether that's through wellness or culture, just networking, just a place to hang out. And in terms of physical spaces, there were not many options. And so we started Ethel's Club to become that space for people.
During that time, what was going on in your mind that kind of led you down this path of wellness and mental health?
I had a lot of things in my life that I was not happy with, and I started to look for specifically a Black female therapist. And it felt like it was impossible. I didn't know where to start. I didn't understand the different disciplines. I also didn't have the community to connect around the problem with. I needed that, and so Ethel's Club is sort of the answer to my problems as well.
I know from personal experience that it can be so hard to find just a therapist, and when you try to find someone that will work with you, somebody you can relate to, someone you feel comfortable with, it just adds so many other layers of complexity.
The cultural competency part is an enormous part of what we're trying to solve. I think therapy itself is such a stigma in communities of color. Once people are able to work themselves out of the stigma around mental health and wellness, you then want to ensure that they feel comfortable talking about the specific issues they're having with the practitioner.
And who inspired the name behind the club?
Ethel's Club is named after my grandmother. She was someone who was just a force in her community. She raised funds for local organizations. Her home was sort of like the center of the town. There was a running joke in my family that if you stayed there long enough, you'd see a wedding, a college graduation, a divorce, a baby, if you just sat there long enough. And when I was thinking about what the essence of Ethel's Club was going to be, right? I didn't want it to be sort of this empty, new age mental health space. I wanted it to be rooted in something a lot deeper. And as I started to think through that for myself, to me that was family, that was local community, and how could I kind of embed and imbue that sense of familialness into this company I was building. And so I had this sort of moment where I was like, I should obviously name it after her. I think there's also a lot of power in naming a company after a Black woman and being very unapologetic about that. When we had the physical location for Ethel's Club, it was really the idea that people could connect with one another in intimate ways that's just hard in a city like New York.
What was your original vision like for this space, and how did that play out in the first few months of being open?
We wanted to normalize that wellness is as important of your daily journey as getting coffee, as going on a walk. And so the vision was to have many physical locations, but obviously we were derailed a bit. We were open for about 4 months before coronavirus, and so that very much changed what I wanted out of the company, but I think what the universe was telling me how to move forward with the company.
And how did you pivot when the pandemic hit?
It's funny because at the time, it felt like everything was on fire. I'm a very type A, planned out. There was no plan because the day before, I had no idea we were going to shut down the physical space. That day, March 12th, I was at the clubhouse and I went around and talked to a few of our members and I asked them, what would you want if we do go online? What does that look like to you? And used a lot of that to influence what we ended up building.
While you're in the middle of all of this, going digital with Ethel's Club, building new things, you also launched Somewhere Good. I'd love if you could share a bit about that.
So Somewhere Good is a tech platform and or a social platform that connects people of color around the things that they love. People are looking for alternatives, whether it is around the idea of posting images, connecting with others, simply having a new space to discover and explore. it doesn't exist. And so we started to think much bigger in terms of our digital offering and thought, why don't we own the technology that we're offering these events on? I believe there need to be more technology platforms created by Black people and people of color. If we're trying to build out this understanding that we are a space that fully allows you to feel seen, heard, and unburdened, it should start with the technology.
How do you hope people will feel when interacting with these platforms you've built?
We are on a journey to add more joy into the lives of people of color. We hope that people feel reflected, that they feel safe, and that they feel ownership over their time on the platform. Both Ethel's Club and Somewhere Good were born from much larger problems. We want to ensure that people feel like they can spend their time there and not feel depleted after, and actually foster meaningful connections. All things that are missing from the larger landscape. Out the gate, we have been championing this idea that this platform is being built by people who look like you, by people who have experienced the internet as it exists in a similar way that you have, and we've seen all the good and we've seen all the bad, and so we're taking that and creating something better.
What do you think makes you a change maker?
I am a change maker because I empower people to feel better about who they are. That's how you actually implement change, right? It's less me doing anything and more so giving other people the power to make change in their own lives.
Although Naj has had to reckon with the loss of her original dream amidst a pandemic that disproportionately impacts Black and brown people and a movement that begs we value their lives, I think Ethel's Club and Somewhere Good are bringing necessary changes to the ways we interact with tech and each other during a time when our global community is in need.